All right. So hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here at the So You Want to Be a Recovery Coach. This is an IARCP sponsored lunch break, International Association of Recovery Coach Professionals. If you aren't familiar with the IARCP, that's what it is. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that you can see just a little bit of a presentation that I put together. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see So You Want to Be a Recovery Coach on your screen? That's great. Awesome. And happy Valentine's Day, Stacy, into Stacy's shirt. All right. So welcome everyone to So You Want to Be a Recovery Coach. A little bit about the International Association of Recovery Coach Professionals. This is our mission. This is one of our goals. We want to promote the Recovery Coach Professional designation and support recovery coach professionals by furthering our values-based coaching practices through building community, educational opportunities, and cultivating resources. This is what we want to do with this workshop today. We want to build a community. We want to do that through educational opportunities. So that's going to be through working through scenarios and just sharing best practices and sharing resources. And then lastly, it says cultivating resources. So I just jumped the gun on that one. So we want to share resources and cultivate resources as well. That is why we are here today. So I thank you all for being here. So this is a workshop. So I want to kind of get us into working together. Let's do some introductions. We're going to do introductions in a smaller group. So once you get to your small group, this is what I will ask of you. Please introduce yourself. Give your name, your location. If you feel comfortable, your recovery status. Are you a person in recovery? Are you an ally? Are you a friend? Are you a family member? And what characteristics or traits do you have that make you an effective recovery coach? And then the next question I want you to think about is, what characteristics or traits do you see in other recovery coaches that you would like to work on yourself in your practice? So I'm just going to repeat that really quickly. Your name, location, your recovery status, if you feel comfortable, and what traits or characteristics do you have that make you an effective recovery coach? And then what characteristics or traits do you see in other recovery coaches that you would like to work on in your own practice that you think could make you a more effective recovery coach? Is everyone clear on that? Is there anyone that's unclear, I guess? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and open up some rooms. There's going to be 4 rooms. You're going to go ahead and get an invitation to a breakout room now. There's going to be about 4 people in each room, and you'll have about 5 minutes in that breakout room. I'll give you a 60-second warning. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. The characteristics. Welcome back. Sorry. Welcome back. You are welcome to share about those characteristics that you discussed within your breakout room. What characteristics or traits do you have that make you an effective recovery coach? And what are some characteristics or traits that you see in others that you're like, oh, I kind of want to work on that myself so that I can become a more effective recovery coach? Or there are some common themes in your room. Please feel free to raise your virtual hand so I can call on anyone that wants to share. Patrick.
I'll kick us off. It was great being in the breakout room and getting to meet the other folks there. I think what I heard, several common sort of characteristics: compassion, listening, empathy. I think that almost all of us really and recovery experience, at least for our group, felt that those were characteristics that made us effective recovery coaches. For me, the couple of characteristics that I would like to work on is being able to better motivate clients who are in an anger stage and who are in sort of that dragging their feet stage. So those are the 2 things that I think would be really helpful for me as a coach.
Thank you, Patrick. Would anyone else like to share? All right. I don't want to like take the floor too much, but I'll go ahead and I'll share my own experience. I think that one of the things that came up in our room, I ended up having a virtual breakout room with anyone that kind of came in a little bit later. One of the things that came up was compassion, of course, and I believe that Patrick got to that. But one of the things that I know for myself, I would like to work on is just confidence. Confidence that that my presence is enough, that just by being there with someone else, that my energy and my own experience is enough. Not necessarily what I'm saying is enough, because I want the recovery to say more than I'm saying, but just the confidence. That's what I feel like I could utilize a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons why this particular workshop came around, is because how often do we get a chance to practice? How often do we get a chance to kind of be in a no stakes situation, like just amongst our peers talking about real situations that we may encounter, but there's no stakes involved, right? Like we have the opportunity and the ability to maybe say the wrong thing, and so we can revise and work on how we would want to say it when we actually get in front of a recovery. So that's one of the reasons why this workshop came about. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get into the scenarios of the workshop. But before we do, I want to introduce you to something that you are probably very familiar with, our CCAR three-legged stool. I hope that no one is tired of this yet, because this is really the foundation of what we here at CCAR, what we do. We even talk about the CCAR three-legged stool with how we treat people that are our participants, our facilitators, you all, right? It's not just about recoveries, it's about how are we treating people in our lives? Are we treating them as resources, or are we treating them as objects or recipients? Are we actively listening to them? Are we managing our own stuff in that situation? And are we asking good questions? Are we talking more, or are we listening more? So the CCAR three-legged stool is fundamental. So this is why it is in this presentation. And this is what I want you to think about, questions that I want you to consider as we go through these scenarios. So I have 3 scenarios set out for us, but that's really going to be dependent upon time. This is no rush. It's going to take whatever it takes in this workshop. I want us to feel like we can communicate with each other and build a community. So it'll take what it takes. But questions to consider during your discussion with your small groups. Okay, I did not spell check this, so I apologize. Apparently, my Grammarly didn't kick in for this. So I apologize for that, but what might be some good questions that I can ask? Okay, how will the recovery know that I'm actively listening? What kind of stuff might I have to manage in this situation? Am I treating the recovery as a resource? How? How do I know? And what are some other resources that might be helpful here? So as recovery coaches, we have to be humble enough to know that we are not the end all be all. So sometimes that means referring to other resources. So what are some other resources that might be helpful here? Okay. All right, so that brings us to our first scenario. Scenario 1, would anyone like to read the scenario out loud? Just give a raise of your virtual hand. Karen, is that you? Are you raising your real hand? Go ahead and unmute yourself and read the scenario.
There's a few different Karens here I saw.
Oh,
so I wasn't sure if you were talking about me.
Different Karen.
Yeah.
Karen, so Karen Mia, I think you're next. Then Karen Smith, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, did I unmute?
Yes, you are. You're unmuted.
Sammy, a recovery that you have been working with a short time, has been attending AA meetings for 1 week. In that time, Sammy has abstained from drinking, but reports that they hate AA meetings and don't want to continue going. How do you respond?
Thank you, Karen.
If you will.
All right. So everyone meet Sammy. Sammy, who's been attending AA meetings for a week, but Sammy I hate AA meetings, Sammy says. So what do you do? How do you respond? What are some good questions you can ask Sammy? How will you show Sammy that you're actively listening? What kind of stuff might you have to discover and manage here? How are you going to treat the recovery as a resource? And are there any outside resources that you may need in this situation? Now, we're going to go ahead and go into our small groups. And we are going to, we're going to process this scenario within our small groups. I saw a hand up, but did the hand go down? We're gonna process this in our small group, so maybe there's no question any longer. So
before we go,
is that
this is
Jackie? Is that you?
Yes, I just realized that my contractor Zoom is on my phone, so I signed in under a different link.
It's
So
okay. I'll rename you really quickly.
please, I was wondering why the reaction. So yes, I apologize for that. When I raised my hand, I saw whose name popped up. That's not mine. I'll see you in a breakout.
You're Jackie now, so you're all good. All right.
Thank you.
So let's try about 7 or 8 minutes in the breakout rooms to process. And then we can come back as a large group, and then we'll process as a large group. How does that sound?
Good. Maisha, how you doing? This is Donald.
Hey, Donald.
I just want to say that I am working, so I'm like in, and I'm gonna, I guess, go into my small groups or do as much, but I'm kind of dual tasking here because I'm at work and I'm
That's fine. For everyone that is multi or dual tasking, if you're not able to participate just at this moment, please feel free to just turn your camera and mic off. And then so that person in the breakout room knows that you're not able to participate just at that moment because you might have something else going on in the background at that moment in time.
all right.
But otherwise, you'll be in groups of 4 to 5. And I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms now. You might be in a group that's different than your previous group. So feel free to just do some quick introductions when you get into your new room. I will see you all in about 7 to 8 minutes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. All right. So now is our time to kind of discuss that as a group. So if someone wants to represent their particular breakout room and tell us what you all came up with as a breakout, please feel free to raise your virtual hand. Oops, that's my Google telling me that it was time to break you out. Mel.
Hiya. So I was in a breakout group with Jackie, and then Neetha joined as well. And Jackie and I were absolutely on the same page that we would, when we heard the scenario, we would really get curious as to why this she didn't like the 12-step meeting, first of all, to really kind of understand what had happened, what her experience was, what she didn't like about it, just to really establish if it was actually an AA meeting that she didn't like, or that particular group, or maybe she felt super anxious and just really didn't like that experience or that feeling. So we would ask a lot of questions initially around her, what she'd experienced and why she didn't like it. And then from there, we would offer whatever local support or resources might be available for her, different types of recovery groups, or if she was a young person, maybe point her in the direction of a younger meeting, and perhaps even not necessarily recovery meetings, but other groups of people that she might feel more aligned to. So really understanding what she liked and asking her, you know, what do you think would work for you? What's missing that you don't have? What recovery have you seen in somebody else that you would like, and perhaps go and ask them what they do and come back and tell me, you know, how can I help you? That kind of approach. And I'd like to pass it to Jackie or Neetha to help me finish up one, but that's pretty much what I think we discussed.
That was great so far.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, we covered all the bases, only we didn't know we were talking about, we forgot about discovering and managing your own stuff, but our stuff would have been the ask the good questions rather than to try to fix the situation.
Mm. Yes,
Mm.
thank you for that. All right, anyone else? Would anyone else like to share what came up? We talked about treating the recovery as a resource. We talked about discovering and managing our own stuff. And we talked about actively listening as well. Did anyone talk about that in their breakout rooms?
I'm sorry. I left the ladies a little short-handed because I had to take care of an issue at work, but I did come in at the end, and I was in that group that just shared. But I also, sometimes you want to know, well, for me, I've found it to be effective, like a little readiness ruler, change ruler in regards of where they are, because the recoveries and the participants come in and you really don't know where they are in terms of how much we're motivating. So motivation can be in many shapes, forms, and colors, as we know, but their willingness and ready to change. So I usually ask on a scale of 1 to 5, and then go from not ready to 1 to very ready to 5, because that also can help us in regards to how we're going to approach our active listening, managing our moment, because again, we want to motivate and not give so many directives, as I've learned over my time. So I just wanted to share with the ladies that have previously shared, because I was in the group I started, but I had to jump off because I'm working. Sorry.
Thank you, Donald. Karen, Mia.
I
I learned my lesson.
It's okay. That's rare too, to see more than one Karen. Usually it's not very common, but we talked mostly about the, asking good questions and actively listening. And I think we kind of all agreed, like, one thing that is so awesome about recovery now is that there's a lot more options than just AA available. And like, personally, I can understand Sammy because I don't particularly care for those meetings myself. It's just, it's not a one size fits all type thing. I go to Smart Recovery. I love it. I love Smart Recovery meetings, and they have SOS now. I mean, there's just all sorts of groups. And so actively listening after asking, a few lightly, like, probing questions, like, okay, finding out a little bit more about them and what type of meeting may benefit them a little bit more. If they have the option of going to other meetings, like if it's not a court mandated AA or whatever, because it doesn't have to be, we don't all pick up on the same things. It's not one size fits all type deal. Some people identify with a different type of meeting better. So that's totally understandable.
Thank you so much, Karen. I chose this scenario for a reason, because it has AA in it. And some people get tripped up when they see a specific pathway mentioned, and stuff can come up. I know I have my own stuff around 12-step, and that's because, in full disclosure, it is my pathway of choice. It is my pathway of choice. So I'm, of course, going to have stuff around that I'm going to have to discover and manage. But other people are going to have, like, kind of the opposite, where they're like, I hated AA too. Let's get together and let's burn AA down to the ground and let's do something else. So that's stuff as well. And then there are going to be some people that are like, wait. So I wanted to choose this scenario specifically because I wanted to remind everyone that at CCAR, we do honor multiple pathways. That can look different for different people. However, there is something to say, if a pathway is going to work for someone, it's going to work for someone. AA or 12-step recovery, those are really popular pathways. And one thing that I'm not sure if people notice this, but as Sammy has been attending these meetings, Sammy has abstained from drinking. Congratulations, Sammy. Go, Sammy. Like, man, yes, you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yes.
What's working? What's working for you? What's not working? And that's kind of some of the questions that we were getting at that were shared as well. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there, not to kind of trick anyone, but to also show that like these 12-step, that will work for some people. It may not work for some people, but before we abandon it altogether with Sammy, let's figure out like what's going on, what's working and what's not working as well. So great job, everyone. Stacy, go ahead, Stacy.
So I just wanted to bring something up because Vince actually had a good question when we were talking about this, were these AA meetings mandated meetings? Because that could bring up a whole other situation of hating meetings that you've been forced to attend and what that could look like. Because for some people, depending on what program they might be in, or if it's court appointed or whatever it is, that might be the only pathway that they've been given. And so at that point, as advocates, we might have to tease out like what they liked, what they didn't like, in order to maybe suggest some alternative options that are not only going to sit with Sammy, but would sit with his program, too. So.
What a good question. And that's just kind of, that shows that being curious is so important in the role of a recovery coach. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stacy, and thanks, Vince. I don't see Vince on the screen. I must be missing him. All right, so that brings us to scenario 2. All right, scenario 2. Karen Mia, would you like to read this one?
Sure. Yeah. You are coaching a woman, Beth, who is 90 days substance free. You find out from Beth that she just lost a friend to a reoccurrence of symptoms related to substance use. Beth is distraught and tells you that she wants to use again.
All right. So we, as recovery coaches, we may have been here already. This is a place where we may be. So what are some good questions we can ask? How can we show that we're actively listening? What kind of stuff might come up for us and how might we discover and manage that? How are we making sure that we're treating the recovery as a resource? And what are some outside resources that might be applicable here? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and break us off into our breakout rooms once more. How was 7 minutes? Was that too long? Was it too short? Was it just right? Was it okay? Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna do another 7-minute breakout room. So I'm gonna open all the rooms now, and then I'll see you all in 7 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I think we have almost everyone back, or everyone back. Welcome back, everyone. So we have the scenario with Beth. What did you all come up with for Beth? What were some good questions? What stuff might you have that you had to discover and manage on your own? Were there any outside resources that might be helpful here? Go ahead and raise your virtual hand and I can call on you so that you can share. Tito.
Someone mentioned empathy, having empathy, working with recoverees, and also shared creating a, and so in my words, what I gathered from it was creating a platform that's welcoming for the recovery to express their emotions without judgment. And so that was awesome.
Mhm.
And I touched on some questions that I've been actually exploring when working with recoveries myself, is to really ask those forward-thinking questions like, what can we do in this session to, or what is the aim for our session together, you know, or just kind of keeping the presence of them here about them in the context where it's like, what would need to happen for you to walk away feeling that this time was well spent, right? Just to kind of, you know, open the door for them to lead the conversation to what they want it to be, and not, you know, yes, I like to stay away from asking feeling questions, because I think that just comes from years of working in the clinical field. So I want to ask coaching questions. If they express their feelings, great, but I stay away from the word feeling, because sometimes that could be challenging. At least that's just what I've learned in my experience so far, but that's all. Unless I'll say like, can you tell me more about that? You know, but that's all. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tito. Great. Yeah. Staying in
Mhm.
our lane is really
Thank you.
important. And a lot of us have different backgrounds, right? Like we might have a background as a clinician, we might have a background as a sponsor, and we also have a background as recovery coaches. So it's really important for us to put on the hat of recovery coach when we're recovery coaching. So thanks, Tito, for that reminder. Patrick.
So going back to the scenario, one of the things that we talked about was the importance of letting her know that it's okay to say she wants to go use again. That, you know, you don't jump down her throat and say, oh my God, no, you can't do that. Look what happened to your friend. That, you know, allowing her to express exactly what she's feeling in that moment. And that's where the empathy and the compassion can come in. And as you ask questions about, you know, how she's feeling, and I loved what Nathan was saying in our group was about, you know, have you seen other people who have gotten sober, who have gone through grief, you know, that, and begin to sort of see, does she have some examples in her life of people who have gone through grief of losing somebody in addiction and managed to stay sober? So in a way, it's sort of part of that is the connecting with some of those additional resources. But I think the first and foremost thing that we talked about was the importance of allowing her to express exactly what she's thinking and feeling in that moment, and making it a safe space for her.
Thank you, Patrick. Now, did anyone else have anything to share? I know we are only a few minutes away from our end time, but I wanted to open up space. Donna. Hi, Donna.
I her feelings, we would be like validate them, but we would also ask her if she'd like a resource for maybe you know, something like a grief meeting, or you know, mental health counseling as a resource. And we would also, you know, condone and congratulate her, be a cheerleader in such a way, and on her 90 days, and ask her what she would think would happen if she used again, or relapse. And if you know, if we could get her to open up, you know, and share her feelings and emotions, because, you know, that's all part of when we go through recovery, that you start having these new things. And if she's okay with herself, if she's in a safe place or, and wants to keep her recovery going.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. So thanks for bringing up some of those resources, right? So Beth is clearly grieving the loss of a friend. So a possible grief counselor or mental health counselor might be helpful here as well. So yes, great. Thank you so much. Now we might have time for one more mini share before we wrap up today.
Maya, could I just say one thing quickly before I might step out right now? I would like to say that everybody was given good responses, but being at a mental health and substance abuse, staying in a lane is definitely important. So I'm around a bunch of clinicians with a lot of directives. And then to be honest, I relish the coaching as I'm en route to getting ready to take my CAC1, but the coaching is totally different. Managing the moment and allowing them to be in their place is so important. So I would agree, like as Patrick would say, or everyone was saying, just letting them be in their moment. To collaboratively motivate with their plan for change sometimes require just listening, active listening, and being supportive. And as this young lady said, cheerleading. So I definitely say stay in our lane. That's crucial for me. And I get a reminder every day because those clinicians are clinicians.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, everyone. I actually had another scenario, but that's going to have to be used at another time, another day, because we are at almost the 1:00 p.m. Eastern time cutoff. But a couple of things before we disconnect today. First off, I just want to thank everyone for taking out the time today to just be here, to build community, to go over best practices, to share some good questions, to share some of our stuff with one another so that we can better discover and manage it when we're working with the recovery. I want to leave you with a couple of things. Donald reminded me of one that I probably left off, but a couple of things I want to leave you with. Stay curious, right? Stay curious. That doesn't just mean working with our recoveries. It means working with each other. Stay curious. And stay in touch. Please feel free to reach out to me, Mesha Zakrevsky, at mesha@ccard.us. And my cell phone number is 860-331-9436. And also, please keep in contact with us via our websites as well to see the things that are going on, addictionrecoverytraining.org. And for the IARCP, which is the International Association of Recovery Coach Professionals, that will be www.recoverycoachprofessional.org. It is now 1:00, and I thank everyone so much for your time. Khalees, I thank you for helping me as my co-host and letting people in. That was so helpful. And please, everyone stay in touch. I'm hoping that we can have a few more of these more often, just so that we can get together and support each other and share best practices and build community. Thank you so much, everyone.